Today's conversation is on how you can have what you desire practically all the time. How you can have what you desire practically all the time. See, it has been articulated in the various scriptures of the world. If the person in mind is not identified with illusory thinking, illusions of separation-based thinking, that seem to generate illusions of separation between desire and fulfillment, they will see in the various scriptures of the world that you are fulfilled and that desire means fulfillment. For example, Mark 11:24, whatsoever things ye desire, pray as though you have received it, and it will be yours. Now, what that's pointing to is the fact that you are fulfilled. You are fulfilled for no reason at all. Your true nature is fulfillment. You are, as I say, love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment for no reason at all. Now, you may choose to experience the fact that you are love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment as experiences of life. Nothing wrong with that. The only time a person thinks there's something wrong with that is if they shame or condemn having desire, which is the original sin. The original sin is shaming. So if a person shames themselves for having desire, then they miss the mark. What do I mean by that? If a person thinks that desire means suffering, then they generate those kinds of experiences in life for no reason other than to bring awareness to the fact that they are fulfilled inevitably by releasing identification to the particular beliefs that are generating this unnecessary suffering. What do I mean by that? I have worked with many people over the years to release identification to particular dogmatic beliefs regarding the various scriptures of the world. They thought that having desire is a bad thing. They should not fulfill desire. They should not experience desire in life as the symbols of God, as in, I am love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. They should not experience the symbols of God. And I asked them why. And they said, because this is what I was told, or this authoritative figure told me. And it was clearly a misinterpretation. And so one of the ways that it played out, when I'm thinking about one individual in particular, is because they were identified with a particular belief that seems to suggest that desires result in suffering, they would appear to experience what they desire and then a whole bunch of suffering afterwards. And so they thought it was bad then to have desire because they would experience what they desire, whatever it may be, money, relationship, etc., and then a whole bunch of suffering afterwards. But when we got into what was going on, there was a belief in mind that they were suggesting that if they experience what they desire in life, then there needs to be a whole bunch of suffering afterwards. So essentially, they have formed a dogmatic belief, thinking it has to be this way, when that is just the belief that is playing out in theater to generate that kind of experience, which is completely unnecessary, we could say, other than to bring awareness to the belief that has been identified, which is generating unnecessary suffering so that it can be released. So what ended up happening then is they released identification to that dogmatic belief. And they went on to experience what they desire in life. And then there was no suffering afterwards. And they asked me, how did you know about this? And I said, well, in 2004, I read a book called Think and Grow Rich. And he said that if you have a burning desire, you can imagine yourself in possession of that which you desire. And that is a definite chief aim. So my first definite chief aim was to get out of $50,000 debt. And it happened. I got out of $50,000 debt. Now, after I got out of $50,000 debt, not only did I get out of $50,000 debt, I also had enough money in my bank account to buy my first house. I had also experienced mind purification on the journey to actualizing that definite chief aim. And my relationships had transformed. My career had transformed in a favorable way. There was all these benefits as a result of actualizing what I desire. So there was no suffering because I was not identified with this particular belief that suggests that if I experience what I desire, then there's going to be a whole bunch of suffering afterwards. I know that desire means having. Now, over the years, I have created a number of definite chief aims. And with every definite chief aim that was actualized, there was no suffering as a result of actualizing the definite chief aim. Rather, on the journey to actualizing each definite chief aim, opportunities were presented for mind purification, to release the illusions of separation from being love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. Those particular beliefs in mind that were generating unnecessary suffering. So not only was there not suffering after I actualized what I desire, but even more unnecessary force, stress, unnecessary suffering was released along the way. How so? Well, when I built my IT business to success, which was another one of my definite chief aims, I had the opportunity to do sales and marketing. In the earlier stages, there was identification to illusions of separation-based beliefs between myself and another person. In other words, when I would do a presentation, I would think, or sort of would appear that way. That's old man thinking. That's not me really thinking. The old man thinking, we could say, would seem to suggest that this person would not accept me the way that I am. And I had the opportunity to not identify with those thoughts if they arose in mind, those illusory thoughts. And as I always say, illusions appear to disappear. So what did it reappear as? It appeared as harmonious business deals, not afraid to do sales, actually enjoying doing sales, actually enjoying doing marketing. Because I had released further illusions of separation-based beliefs that are in the subconscious mind that were generating unnecessary resistance on my entrepreneurial journey. That's what I meant by opportunities were presented for mind purification. This is true for relationships, any area of your life. As I always say, anything can be a spiritual catalyst. Now, what is interesting is I find that the desires of the heart are given to be experienced in life with no additional suffering afterwards. And if there is suffering afterwards, that is a result of particular beliefs that are looking to be released. As awareness is brought to those beliefs and they are released, the suffering no longer appears. And then on the journey to actualizing the vision, there may be opportunities to release identification to these illusory beliefs that is generating unnecessary force, stress, frustration, which is, let's call, flow restrictors, that generates the illusion, we could say, of the individual not being in their flow. Flow is their natural way of being. Flow is your natural way of being. Flow is my natural way of being. There is no shaming and condemning in flow. Anytime a desire appears, I have. That's it. Desire is simple acknowledgement of the being you are. Mark 11:24 again. Pray as though you have received it, and it will be yours. Essentially, put off the former conversation that belongs to the old man, and you are not the old man. Very precise. All I do is think from the premise of fulfilled desire, and there is no need to think otherwise. And by that I mean very specifically. To think otherwise would be unwise, as desire means having. So then why would I think from anything other than the premise of fulfilled desire? It would be thinking from the premise of those illusory beliefs which belong to the old man. And as you are not the old man, you can put off those former conversations. So he was presented, my friend, with an opportunity to release identification to that particular dogmatic belief that was a result of misinterpretation of Scripture, which then he thought he had to do all this prayer and meditation rather than experiencing the life that he genuinely desires to live, because he thought by not experiencing what he desired, then he was going to experience something in the afterlife, etc. And he was clearly not happy, suppressing and repressing desire. Rather than, as we talked about in our recent video, embracing the challenge, because there's always an access point to the flow. You could access the flow now by doing nothing. And as I had mentioned in the recent video, anything you desire, you have. Bliss you are, Satchit Ananda, existence, consciousness, bliss. The bliss molecule is released, anandamide, by doing nothing during meditation. Now, the bliss molecule is also released while you're in flow, doing what you love to do, actualizing that which you desire. I trust you noticed this. The bliss molecule is experienced in meditation when doing nothing, and also it is also experienced, released and experienced, and thus you experience bliss while doing what you love to do. So that's what I mean by you can have what you desire practically all the time. You can have it practically all the time in meditation and living the meditation practice. You can have both. You can live your meditation practice in day-to-day life, experiencing bliss on the journey to eternal bliss, we could say. The first-class journey to the first-class destination, or we could say a blissful journey to eternal bliss. See, dichotomous beliefs may suggest it needs to be this way or that way. Well, what about both? Can you have both? You actually experience both if you're not identified with the dichotomous belief. And the desire essentially is pointing to the same thing. You are fulfilled. When you meditate, you acknowledge, I am love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. I am fulfilled. In day-to-day life, you experience love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment by acknowledging the desires to experience love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment as promises of God. That means you are fulfilled, and you get to experience what fulfillment is like, what love is like, happiness is like, peace is like, bliss is like, fulfillment is like, your true nature. You get to experience it in whatever way you desire. For me, it's been ideal, harmonious relationships, business, wonderful life experiences. I travel a lot, and there's no suffering by fulfilling what I desire if there was suffering afterwards, I know that it has nothing to do with the fact that I am fulfilled or that desire means having. Those are just illusory beliefs that a person can associate to desire. But as mentioned, misinterpretation of the various scriptures of the world seem to suggest that what God is saying is that you should not have what you desire, which again is original sin, shame, the person shaming and condemning themselves for having what they desire. Desire means having. And you don't need to look around to this world to see what people are doing and how they're experiencing what they desire and then suggest to yourself that I need to do it this way or that way. This is how that kind of illusory thinking turns into illusory beliefs in mind anyways. To be very precise with my friend, I said, you perceive this individual to be an authoritative figure. So in other words, you are imagining them to be this way. And you're imagining that what they say is the absolute way. Do you really think for yourself? And no shame and condemnation. It was an honest question. Do you really think for yourself? Or are you imagining what they think in a particular way that is forming a belief in mind that suggests illusions of separation from the fact that you are fulfilled now and you get to experience fulfillment in life? You are here to experience the promise of God. For example, here, Joshua 1:3, I have given you every place where the sole of your foot will tread, just as I promised to Moses. It seems to point to the fact that this moment now is existence consciousness bliss. So you can experience bliss now. Each, what appears as steps on the journey to actualizing your vision, is also blissful. Existence consciousness bliss. So you can experience bliss now, on what appears as the journey to actualizing bliss, on the journey to ultimate bliss. Why does it have to be that you can't experience bliss now? That's illusory thinking. It says it right there. I have given you every place where the sole of your foot will tread, just as I promised to Moses, Joshua 1:3. So the way to completely fulfill the promise is to only think from the premise of fulfilled desire. That is what I learned in Think and Grow Rich. That is what Neville Goddard talks about as well. And there is no need to think otherwise. There's no need to think otherwise. Anytime a desire arises, thank you, I have, or I am. In other words, you are everything that you desire to be. You have everything that you desire to have. And from acceptance of the end of being fulfilled, all these things are naturally added onto you in a fun, joyous, flow-based way. As a matter of fact, while you're in flow, as I mentioned, the bliss molecule is released. Anandamide is released. A person experiences physical bliss on the journey to actualizing your vision. That's another dichotomous belief that I released identification to. Which one's better, the journey or the destination? Actually, I don't consider one better than another. The journey and the destination are one. I experience bliss now, bliss 5 minutes from now, because I'm doing what I love to do, what I genuinely love to do. How could you not experience bliss when you genuinely do what you love to do? And then there's an interesting question. Why does a person force themselves to do things that they don't genuinely love to do? Well, perhaps they may be identified with particular beliefs that seem to suggest in order to experience the bliss in the destination, they need to go through a whole bunch of suffering. Or if they experience what they truly desire to experience, then there's a caveat, a whole bunch of suffering afterwards. Well, I found that to be a result of identification to dichotomous beliefs. Clearly it is. That suggests that, let's say, when you experience what you desire, there needs to be a whole bunch of suffering afterwards. I have not found that to be true. Now, I've taught this to many people over the years. And as a result, they experience exactly what we're talking about here. More flow on the journey to actualizing their visions, whatever they may be, entrepreneurial success, relationship success. For example, practically speaking, in relationships, a person desires to be in a harmonious relationship. Nothing wrong with that. It's a symbol of love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, or a symbol of love, or a symbol of fulfillment, or symbol of bliss. Their style of relationship. They don't need to look around in this world and say, I need to be with this kind of person, this kind of relationship, etc. Go within, intuition. I listen exclusively, and I encourage everyone to listen exclusively to the still small voice that speaks from the sure foundation of love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, beyond the illusions that seem to suggest otherwise, which we could say appear to disappear as we don't identify with them anymore. Now, what then ends up happening is a person goes on wonderful dates, they have wonderful experiences, and because they desire to be in a relationship with one individual, after these dating experiences, they end up in a wonderful relationship. And when they end up in a wonderful relationship, they continue to have wonderful experiences. That is not suffering on the journey. That is not suffering when they get to that destination, and that is not suffering afterwards. So that's what I mean by desire means having. Desire means I am. Desire means being. We release the illusions of separation practically through acknowledgement that desire means having, desire means being, desire means I am. Because, as I mentioned, anything you desire, you have. Anything you desire, that you are. I have, from personal experience, realized this. I've been applying this information since 2004 through Think and Grow Rich, as I mentioned. Any one of these definite chief aims or visions that I've had or desires that I imagined myself experiencing, as they were fulfilled, I acknowledge that, you know what, they really are symbols of love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. Therefore, I am love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. You inevitably realize that through experience. And anytime the illusory thoughts appear in mind, don't think those thoughts. They belong to the old man, which is not you, as we're taught in the Bible as well. Put off the former conversation, which belongs to the old man. The old man thinks in terms of sinning. They think that desire does not mean fulfillment. Desire means suffering, and thus generates those illusions. So that is what I mean by you can have what you desire practically all the time. Bliss now, bliss on the journey to actualizing your vision. And when you get to your vision, you experience bliss. And then you may have another desire to experience another symbol of love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. And then again, the journey continues. Love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, more so. And then, as I mentioned, there may be mind purification opportunities along the way that, let's say, seem to suggest that you are not love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. These thoughts appear in mind in relation to a particular experience that you have with a person, environment, circumstance that suggests that your desire is not fulfilled, which is illusory, or suggests that you are, let's say, not love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment in some shape or form, which just arises from these illusory beliefs. So we can say those illusory beliefs are looking to be released, and then those illusory thoughts no longer appear in mind. The only thoughts that appear in mind are fulfilled thoughts, thoughts of fulfillment, thoughts of being love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment in relation to yourself, in relation to people, environment, circumstance, information, more and more so with increasing frequency on a continuous basis as far as the senses perceive. That's the benefit of taking these opportunities, mind purification opportunities, as I call them, that appear on the journey. They appear on the journey to actualize the vision. And when you do take these opportunities, you access the flow. By taking these opportunities, you relax into the flow. Because why is it, let's say, the individual appears to not be allowing themselves to relax into the flow? Well, they may be identified with particular thoughts of shame, condemnation, or thoughts that seem to suggest illusions of separation from being, love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. Or they may be identified with conditional beliefs suggesting if it happens this way, then flow, and if it happens that way, then not flow. All those are released by not identifying with those illusory thoughts. And then a person actually physically, this is an integrated approach, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual integrated approach. Physically, emotional regulation, physically, even clear thinking. A person is relaxed into the flow. As Mihai Csikszentmihalyi talked about in the wonderful book, Flow, the sweet spot where challenge meets skill. So if a person experiences challenge on the journey to actualizing the vision, that's an access point to the flow. Challenge is an access point into the flow. We can call this embracing chaos. I don't run away from these challenges that are on the journey to actualizing the vision. It's not like I'm going and looking for things to solve, etc. I'm on the journey to actualizing the vision. You're on the journey to actualizing the vision. And whatever appears as challenge, I transmute the emotions. As I mentioned, what I once experienced as anxiety in public speaking, social situations, etc., was transmuted into excitement. Why? Because I genuinely desire to do those things. Desire means having. Why would I suppress or repress or deny the desire? Why would I do that? That's completely unnecessary. Desire means having. So I was presented with opportunities on the journey to actualizing the vision to relax into the flow by releasing identification to those illusory thoughts, those illusory beliefs, by doing nothing unnecessary in the moment, simply releasing. That's it. And you're relaxed into the flow, and the entire experience is transmuted to be in harmony. I trust you've noticed this. So again, this is what I mean by you can have what you desire practically all the time. Practically speaking. Journey and destination, see them as one. There is no separation. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. Let's conclude this with an auto-suggestion to further encourage. You could say, I acknowledge that desire means I am fulfilled, and I can experience my fulfillment on the journey to actualizing the symbols of fulfillment as ideal harmonious relationships, ideal friendships, business, whatever it is that I desire, to experience God's promise, thy will be done, heaven on earth now.